All right. We are back. We are missing one, Doc. We're missing Mr. Larry Wise. They have some additions to their family. Spoiler alert, the twins are here and everybody's good. Larry may be joining us, everyone. So I know we've been texting back and forth this morning. I'm sure they all have their hands full, literally. But we're coming back with a coach cast episode. Might be a little bit different than normal. Instead, it's just us kind of having a discussion because Doc has taken on a new endeavor. Doc, why don't you tell everybody what your endeavor is at your young age of 82 years old?
Well, I started to see these characters walking around in archery competitions. Namely, first noticed them at at the Lancaster Archery Classic. I see these people walking around all with a Band-Aid on the one side of their nose, and I thought they must have had a heck of a fight someplace, and they all got hit the same place.
Don Demmer.
And then later I started to realize they were shooting a kind of bow that I had never shot. And they were calling it Barebow, and I could see why, because there was no sights on the bow. And I became intrigued with that. And so some time ago, I decided I would like to learn to do that. A number of years ago, I would probably put myself up against many, if not most, just even for fun, traditional longbow shooters who really shot not just with flailing arrows down through the air and hoping that some of them would hit a target, but really had a method to it, such as Byron Ferguson and so forth, and others that I had occasion to either watch or learn from, and so forth. So I would put myself in the good category, at least with traditional bow shooting, both targets on the ground and targets in the air, and generally live targets, because I was a hunter. So I decided some time ago, having now met Frank, who is a barebow shooter, and I think from what I can see, he's doing really quite well with it. And having seen John Demmer shoot and the competitions at Lancaster Archery with Barebow, I thought it was time now, as I began my 82nd year, to learn something new, and keep it separate, not only in my own head as I was thinking about it, but oftentimes I think when you pull up a bow and it's similar to another bow, you end up shooting the way you've done it before. And I wanted to be able to make that differentiation. So I've only, actually, I bought the Sprigger Rally riser, and the limbs were late in coming in, but I had purchased this so that possibly, actually on my birth date, which is June 4, that Frank and I would put the bow together and shoot for the first time. That didn't work for two reasons. We didn't have the limbs yet, although they were on their way to Lancaster Archery. And you had major flooding in your town, Frank, and you were running around helping people evacuate as an
Yeah.
emergency person in the fire company and so forth, and watching young men in kayaks chase salmon up and down your streets.
It was crazy. I have to admit, just for everyone, we had 5 inches of rain in 45 minutes. We had 18 calls in less than 8 hours. It was insane, the amount of rain that we had, and it just like came out of nowhere.
So we didn't shoot that day on my birthday, and I got rained out. But a few days later, we put the bow together, which I was curious to see, how that was different, and so forth. And so Frank began the trek of teaching me all the beginning steps, and we'll see how it works out. But I do pride myself, frankly, and this is a little patting on the back here, possibly, that I pride myself as a lifelong learner, because I have been. I certainly was not a lifelong learner when I was in the traditional school system. They kept me in a corner pretty much of the time because I was what would now be called non-traditional learner, I suspect. Then it was called dumb. That's the term. I was the dumb kid, and that's the term that was actually used in my classrooms. But if I ever have a day, people, that I haven't learned something new, I better call my friendly undertaker before I start to stink, because I will be dead, and I just love to learn. And the only way to really learn, I discovered years ago, especially when I taught graduate medical students, not students, I mean medical graduates. These were people with years of experience coming back into school to learn how healing takes place. And I don't mean that in a way of hocus pocus, but I mean actually what actually happens in the body, how that corresponds within the natural system and our behaviors and so forth. And those are the kind of classes I taught. It's very difficult to teach people, and I don't mean this as a negative, but who really believe that they know everything there is to know about their subject that is known. It's like trying to put a little more water in the bottle when it's completely full. It just pours out. And so the only way to really learn what I'm getting at, and this is how I'm presenting myself with my coach, my trainer, Frank McDonough, is to stand there not knowing anything about it. Being stupid, as my mentor for years and trainer, Dr. Murray Bowen, who I worked with at Georgetown for 17 years, as he presented things, the best position from which to learn something is a position of total stupidity. And he really meant that, because you can then clear your head and learn something new. And this is how I want to do this. Probably the one thing I noticed more than anything else as a result of shooting the bow, and I actually have this critter with me right now. I have to watch the fans going in the room here, so.
It's a little longer than what you're used to.
This is long enough to be a decent fly rod, a little heavy, but and it is very heavy. That's one thing I noticed, very much so. It really pulls quite differently. There's a lot of major differences to it. I have probably 15 longbows and recurves, many of them handmade by various people around the world. One or two that I've worked on. And so it's a very different instrument here.
So, Doc, let's hold that vertical real quick, and we'll.
Well, you may hear some chattering then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Or just back up and hold it sideways, so everybody can see the bow. And I'll run down the equipment quick just to give everybody. So a Barebow is just that. It's an Olympic recurve. You have it upside down, Doc. Flip that bad boy so they can see it properly. So they can see the Barebow. There's a couple things in world archery that designate Barebow from the rest, and that is, hold on a second. That is that it's an Olympic recurve riser, ILF limbs. You have your, and why is this not letting me close? 1 second, please.
Would it be better if I turned it this way?
No, it's fine the way it is. No,
Yeah.
I'm having actually it's on my end. My screen just a window popped up, and I don't know why it popped up. I'm trying to figure out why. I want to get rid of it. bothering me. There we go. Okay, we're good. So in World Archery Barebow, it's just a plain riser. He's got some Hoyt exact limbs on there, ILF limbs, and then hold it right there, Doc, so we can see the plunger and the rest. He's got a Spigarelli ZT rest and an AAE Gold Premier plunger. So like that is a Barebow rig. Also, can we see the weight at the bottom of the riser, Doc? So I want people to see. So this riser, this Spigarelli riser, they've been making Barebow risers for a very long time. It comes with custom weights. So it's got one that was already in it. This was an open box purchase from Lancaster Archery, and that weight is movable. You can move it left and right to give you a sense of stability in the bow riser. Yeah, right. So, so Doc got a great deal on this, and this is his first. Now there's no grip on it right now. Doc seemed to like it this way, but if we do, we'll buy a custom Yager grip to put on there that'll fit his hand, which is a good option as well. So it's quite the undertaking, a little bit longer than what Doc's used to shooting, but it gives a it's a pretty smooth. I pulled it, shot it. It's a pretty smooth setup. I like it personally, but this is a World Archery Barebow rig. So
I'm gonna put it down. I'm getting exhausted.
So you were saying that your shoulder's a little sore because you're not used to shooting a bow that heavy, huh?
Well, even none of my compounds are that heavy, and about the only thing I used to hold that was that heavy was when I was an active blacksmith with one of my sledges. But holding the bow and holding it out and maintaining that, I can still feel my shoulder. I mean, I'm not concerned about any kind of separation or joint problems here because I'm pretty well built, and I work out 2 or 3 days a week with a personal trainer to keep my upper body strength. So I'm pretty secure that way. But I did have a major back surgery now 9 years ago, and lost about 2 inches of height in that. And so they switched muscles and so forth. I had to relearn how to use my back. So that has affected my ability to actually stand, completely erect. And because my lower back, the lumbar spine does not curve in like it should. It's very straight now. It's not a fusion,
Right?
But there were a number of laminectomies, and that makes quite a difference. So I'm going to have to do some adaptation on that, which I think will eventually free up the shoulder once I can be in a better posture to maintain the holding the bow, not just with my shoulder, but with my back, which is, I'm sure, what you're doing when you're standing, Frank.
Right. So
a lot of learning to do and so forth, but I'm excited about it and motivated to do it. So, but I'll continue.
And there's some differences too. That's what you're learning. You're learning the differences from a more of an instinctual feeling shooter, where you're coming back, you're hitting anchor, feeling where that aiming point is and just finishing the shot. Whereas in Barebow, you're really concentrating on getting to anchor, having a definitive holding position, and settling the tip of the arrow where you need to aim. And those two shots are such polar opposites that it's very important. It is like your mindset has to be that you're consciously thinking about holding and maintaining that hold, even when the tip of the arrow is there, which is one of the things that most barebow shooters struggle with completely. It's a different shot process, and ultimately will make your instinctive shooting probably much, much better because you're going to feel so much more comfortable at that full draw position. Your shoulders most likely from not getting to full alignment yet, and that's something that you may struggle with because of your back procedure and your posture. But I personally think, because archery has such good health benefits for us, that your posture over time will actually get better the more you concentrate on it, because it's pushing you to get into that good position, and it's good for you. So it might suck a little bit in the beginning, but ultimately, even at 82 years old, it's going to make you more conscious of it. And I mean, it's kind of forces your hand a little bit to be in a more consistent position. It's easier to stand up nice and tall and straight than it is in a repeatable way than to have any, even if it's a 10-degree lean, which is something I've fought for a long time. So I'm so happy that you're pursuing this, Doc. And like you're gonna, as you get to know more people in the barebow community, I just looked, and my buddy Santo is on watching right now. Like as you meet some of the people in the barebow community, like it's just an awesome community. Not that all of archery isn't, but barebow shooters, it's definitely a different world. And as you get out and shoot and compete, and then shoot the Lancaster Classic this year, I'm just so excited for it. I think it's just the coolest thing. And you may break the record as the oldest Lancaster Archery Classic competitor. I'm not sure, but I hope so.
I figure the older I get, the fewer people will be standing with me. And I a number of years ago, at my 50th or 60th high school reunion, they asked me to speak, and I said I finally found out how to become the first person who was first in their class. And some people said, well, how can you do that? And I said, to be the last man standing. And so maybe that's how I could win some kind of placement. But it's not, for me, it's not about winning. No. It's about learning something new and different, and to do it well. And I'm going to have to make some adaptations for that. But I've coached people in archery for years. Actually, I am a level 3, and I learned that through Larry Wise, and I've kept that up until recently. And but I've taught many people traditional shooting, get away from flailing arrows to actually pulling up and having a method to what you're doing. And once you do that, and you can place that arrow exactly where you want it every time, within reason. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a win to do that, whether I can win competitively or not. Although to me, I want to shoot. I've never, and I to the community watching, I'm not saying this in any kind of sense of pride, but it's just been the occasion. When you're a professional and so forth, and you've trained to be a professional, you do your profession. And then I taught for 41 years on top of that, and some other things, and it didn't leave a lot of extra time. So I could not have become a professional archer. That takes, any of you who've done that, it takes incredible time and travel and so forth. I could not have done that. But I want to be an archery professional. And I feel I've become an archery professional for many people. And to be able to do it right and to do it well. That for me will be the win. And I wanted to add barebow to the list.
Yeah, so you're an avid trad shooter. You've shot moving objects dating back to your youth. You've worked unknowingly, well, not knowingly, but unknowingly, worked with Howard Hill. You've shot with and coached with Byron Ferguson. And now you're taking an end compound, obviously, from Larry Wise. And now you're taking on barebow. And, your understanding, and I know, like, people, I think to coach at a high level, you have to have, like, when you're working with athletes and you are coaching at, national world record type shooters, you have to have some level of competition experience for sure. But to coach people and to have an understanding of the sport, you don't have to compete to understand the sport. your value as a coach, which is going to make your barebow journey very, very good, is your understanding of the human body and the human mind, and your experience as a doctor of that uh, um of the neurological world that you have researched for decades. And like when you started, you actually came, you had a touch of that what's the word, that experience when you started aiming. Because remember when I was saying to you about holding your bow arm up and keeping it and staying in that position and allowing that, like, to finish the shot until after the arrow hit. And inherently the tip of the arrow would get there and you would settle for a moment, but then it would go and that arm would drop.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult. It's so
That's
difficult for
very
many
difficult.
shooters. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
No, that was very difficult not to have that happen until I, decided I'm going to hold that arm up. Because when I shoot traditionally, once you allow the string to come off for me, allow it to come off my hand, I'm using my hand actually very much like a back tension release, very much like a sweet spot, and just allow it to come off, and then follow through with that, and then your bow goes down basically for your next shot to continue to hold that. And so there's difficulties, but if you can allow yourself to clear your head to do that and to listen to someone who's telling you something that doesn't seem right because you've done it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a lot of fun. I'm motivated to do it and have a great person nearby. And we're colleagues in the International Archery Institute. And so if we get through this, Frank, I'll get through this. And so,
Oh yeah,
of course,
you're
you
gonna.
people won't know how that's going, because if you see, you won't be able to see that Frank's pulling his hair out because he's trying to train me, and I've accomplished a lot of that too. So
I'm ahead of you somehow, and I'm half your age.
I know it. Exactly half my age, I believe, right?
43, not quite.
Okay. Yeah.
43. I think, and just to explain, or to, that's where I always talk about people who try to take it like full on NTS and apply it to barebow. And I did a vlog on the barebow project about tension and direction. And I even talked to Jay Bars about it when I took the Dick Tone clinic. And I tried to explain to people that, like, that big, even in, like, the trad world, and people are shooting more instinctive, they hit anchor, they hit final expansion, and boom, the arrow's gone. And there's this big explosion of a fall through. And I tried to explain to people, barebow is all about reducing the explosions. It's all about settling and being relaxed at full draw. It's all about consciously worrying about the tension on our fingers and maintaining the full draw, as opposed to a big expansion through it. And because our bodies always want to even things out, like our body is and it's the same, and my analogy has always been that it's the same as, like, I talk about Olympic weightlifting a lot. I know people get tired of hearing about it, but I can't hold a barbell over my head if this elbow's bent and this one's straight. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I even if I try to hold it this way, I can to an extent, but not a max amount of weight. I have to use my body's ability to maintain. I have to stabilize, turn my elbows in, and use my traps to stabilize. Right. We do things where we want to even things out. We don't. And in the follow through, the aim, full draw, expansion, and follow through the archery shot is no different. The back half has to match the front half. But when we have this big, huge explosion of a release, I'm not saying it's a bad release. I'm just saying, if we're this big, huge straight back, and we're doing one of these, or we're trying to finish at a spot back here, sure, it can provide some level of repeatability. But what we forget is that the calmness of our aim is an indicator of where, oh, here comes Mr. Wise. The calmness of our aim is indicated by the stillness and the stability of our bow arm, excuse me, after the shot. And that's why it's different in barebow as opposed to Olympic recurve. If you're able to dial back all of that extra stuff that we really don't need, because if you're at full draw here and you're properly allowing that string to pull through your fingers, and you don't have to yank, you don't have to pull, the bow's going to do all the work. So the goal is just let the bow do the work. You just hold it, maintain that hold, and the expansion isn't a movement at that point. It's just a buildup of tension in the system, and let it. And so that's one of the, and it's not in compound. It's not that much different than compound, other than the fact that in compound we're more actively pulling through the shot because we have mechanical release aids and stuff like that we have to work with. What's up there, Papa? What are you?
Oh, it's well, grandfather to twins last evening. Yeah.
Congratulations.
It took a C-section finally, but yeah, they got it done. My daughter-in-law is a real trooper. Wow.
Everybody healthy right now?
Yep, doing well. Wyatt weighs 6 pounds 11 ounces, and Zachary is 6 pounds 10 ounces.
And this is preterm, so right?
Yeah, that's 36 and a half weeks. That's
wow.
3.5 weeks
Those
early.
Some big babies for 6.5 weeks.
Oh my.
To go.
Yeah.
36 and a half.
We were shocked to hear the birth weights.
That's great though. That's great. If everybody's healthy, babies are healthy, that's outstanding.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
So we are thankful. It was a few days of real anxious trying on their part.
My wife and I have been there and done that, not with twins, thanks the good Lord, but we have been through that similar situation, so we can empathize with it. But I'm glad everybody's healthy. We're talking about Doc's transition to barebow today, Larry. Just so you know, we're talked about his first lesson and what he's learning and seeing.
Yeah, I know he's abandoned me with the compound stuff. I'm going to disown him.
Just
all the cool kids shoot barebow.
Little break.
Yeah.
Another thing that's different for me, because initially when I started shooting archery, I introduced this in an earlier video, because I had no one to teach me. I was the only person that I knew and the only person in my community that I knew that had a bow. I pulled the knock of the arrow like a vice grip, not around the string. And then I had a fellow named Mr. Hill that showed me you're supposed to put your fingers around the string, which sounded like a really dumb idea to me, but he was the teacher, so showed me how to do that. And that was one above and 2 under. Now I'm pulling with 3 under and not even in contact with the knock. I think that threw me more for a loop than the 3 under, because here's the knock up here and I'm pulling down here. But even that's different and significantly different enough. And I was using my old leather glove. We're getting my tabs soon here, and I'll start with that. And that'll be another accommodation I'll need.
Coming from Yoast Archery Products, by the way.
Pardon me, I didn't hear that right.
So that's coming from Eric Yoast at Yoast Archery Products. You're going to get a Yoast Archery Pro Tab.
Okay,
it's on its way.
So we're on our way. I'm excited about it, and it's fun to. We titled this presentation today, Larry, "Teaching the Old Dog New Tricks." So, but I still can.
I would change that title.
So I'm all right.
I'd change that title. Teaching the really old dog new tricks.
Well, have at it. Have at it.
Too funny. Well, I think it's going to be fun, Doc. I'm excited for you. You should show Larry your bow. Show him that. I know he's seen Spigarelli risers before, but show him your
Well,
riser
yeah,
there.
what's the fresh stuff?
Yeah, it's nice. I'm not gonna, I've heard good things about those limbs. Those limbs were nice. Those are
There
really
I
good.
am here on there we are.
Oh,
Is it you,
okay.
Clark?
So we have a shoot, well, not a shoot through, but
Yep.
hollow out below the
Yep.
grip.
Has the barebow weight, has one barebow weight in it. There's room for another one.
Yeah, we can add another 40 or 50 pounds here yet, I think.
Yeah, so that
Before you were on, I was explaining how the next day I went to reach for something. I think actually a dish in the cupboard, and I couldn't. I'm left-handed, and I was reaching this. I had to change to the right side because I was sore from continuing to hold this. And that's one of the first things I had to relearn, that you continue to hold your bow in place after your release. And so I'm challenged by this. This is going to be fun, and I'll continue to work at it.
Yeah, I mean, and to understand, very much of what I teach and how I teach, I've learned from working with and watching John Demmer shoot. One of the reasons that barebow shooters shoot a lower poundage is because, the alignment might not be absolutely perfect. That lower poundage still allows us to stay real steady and calm at full draw. The weight below the riser, first of all, is a world archery rule that's the only place that you can put it below the grip. But also it allows you, when you are holding it, helps you stay a little bit steadier. Not necessarily easier, but it does out. So like, there's not a whole lot of shaking going on. And because like target panic rears its head for people in different ways. It's not like, it doesn't happen the same for everyone. Everybody's prone to certain aspects of what target panic is in some way. And, like John is a very, very consistent shooter. And like the very first episode of the Barebow project we recorded, he was like, my 10 years of making mistakes is what we're here to talk about, because, trying to do so many different things and learning and unlearning and, and that's one of the things that even kind of disappointed in myself, that it took me so long to truly understand what he was talking about when he would say, like, dude, just put it there and hold it there and let it happen, instead of adding stuff to the shot. And it's not like I started saying before, right, as Larry had joined in, it's not any different than compound, where we add things to the shot and make it more difficult than it needs to be.
Oh, yeah.
Barebow is the epitome of not adding things to the shot for consistency, accuracy, and being able to deal with target panic head on.
Yeah, and that concept blends in really well with our main theme for International Archery Institute, and that is fitting within the natural system.
Right.
Blending with the bow as an equal partner is maybe a way to say that.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, in the current modern definition of dominate, that's how our society thinks, is that common definition of the modern definition of dominate, and that's control everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we add things into the shot, thinking that we are manufacturing control, and we're just screwing it up.
Yeah.
True story.
I completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard as how we've been raised, especially in the Western world, I think, to allow yourself to become part of something without believing that you're actually at the steering wheel. that you're
Yeah.
part of what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I probably felt that more clearly until I got back into archery, which is only 12 years ago now, after a hiatus for about maybe almost 10 years, when I became an aircraft pilot. Because if you start to try to horse the airplane around, the airplane will horse you around. You're there when it happens and control the panel and make sure your controlled crash becomes a landing and things like that. And
Right.
Yeah.
We often talk about, I know, like there's a lot of people who emphasize control, control, control. And I know oftentimes John and I had the discussion, and with some other shooters as well, where like you grasp control in some ways by letting go of it and becoming part of the system, become part of the shot. You don't yeah, like some people are all about like you need to control every aspect, and maybe that's their way of explaining it. But you know, when we talk about the mind manage to body feel, when we talk about subconscious or conscious to subconscious, when you go like this and turn the switch, allowing that switch to happen, that's a crucial part. But that part, that switch going to the subconscious cannot come until you hit a bunch of steps, a bunch of performance points, athletic positions, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
You have to hit all these things. And then, like for me, what it is I've already started aiming. I've got to expansion. I've started aiming. My switch goes, and that's when I'm more in. The only thing I'm really concentrating on is the attention on my fingers. That's it. So, you know, I mean, I think Doc's is going to slowly see this transformation, and I think it's going to make all of his archery better. And I think physically it's going to make you better.
Yeah. Doc made some breakthrough here probably last year, I think, when he said that when he felt the shot with the release, when he became aware of the holding of his back, he made that shift, that focus shift.
Yeah.
All right, to the field. And then he started shooting really good groups. Wasn't that last year about this time, Doc?
Oh, I think it's probably some further back than that. When my first, you know, the people near Sean Moore and so forth will appreciate this. The best way to get the attention of a Scot is to reach into his purse. And when my first shot with the sweet spot, it released a little too early, and I slapped myself in the face. And the blood's running down, and a piece of tooth in my hand. That shot. Well, there was the price of the release, and then the almost $1,000 for the dental repairs and so forth. From that point on, I listened to Larry a lot more carefully about what you're supposed to do. So,
self-inflicted wounds. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the wound in my purse was worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Again, being part of something that's bigger than yourself, and this is this is what I've been tracking now for a number of years now, but actually going on 13 years, as to why does shooting archery make us feel good, and that's all tied together in this. And some of you maybe saw the presentation a few weeks ago with Pastor Bob Pope, who has studied to be a neurologist, and before his turn at going into neurosurgery, he was directed to become a pastor and did that, but he's kept up with the neurological side. So he and I have done a lot of this research about what takes place, and a lot of the good feeling has to do with the fact that when you're effectively part of a well-working system, and you have that balance, you have that integrity, and you then feel that. I mean, it's and that and we have a great term in English. Many other languages don't have it. Well-being, and well-being can only be accomplished by being part of this whole thing. And the bow has been a wonderful tool to bring us into that relationship.
Yeah.
And if it wouldn't have been, we wouldn't be sitting here talking, because the Bears would have won years ago, and they'd be having this show about how to eat humans, and if they can find it.
They would have the show.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the leaderboard for a professional ladies golf event recently?
No, can't say I have.
You need to do that.
Why is that?
You need to do that and read the names.
Is there
see-
someone related to you on that?
No.
No.
You would see a lot of Japanese,
Okay.
Korean,
All right.
young women, a lot of them. And why is that?
Yeah.
Well, their approach is, the Eastern approach. They are better, well, they train from very early on to not focus on results, but focus on the feel.
Mhm.
And so because they started at an early age and get that reinforcement, they're better able to handle themselves in the high value moments that they see on the golf course. And so there's a lot of those names, and you have to look at them. And back to our main theme. You have to give yourself over to being an equal partner with the bow. So just for the bow hand, you have to give up control of the bow hand to get consistency. Yeah.
This is certainly the most conscious I've been about the bow hand in any bow I've ever shot. Yeah.
And what you'll come to realize, though, is we don't realize how much extra tension we create, even in the bow hand and the bow arm, because you literally aren't holding the arm. You're actually just relaxing the arm and letting the stabilization of the arm to holding the alignment and the bow, that you're letting that happen instead of being tensed. These muscles, while there's activation happening, but there's not a huge tension buildup, you're using the bone to bone contact to stay at that position.
Mhm.
So once the separation happens, it's a very small step. It's a very small movement that happens. And plus you're going to get stronger, Doc. That bow arm's going to get stronger. Your back and your ability to get that posture is going to improve. I think if there's a win, like that's probably some of the bigger wins that's coming from it. Plus the knowledge base of having that different style of archery, being etching that notion in your brain.
Yeah.
Yep, did that right. Check.
Yeah.
And then sticking with it. So good stuff.
Here's what happened yesterday afternoon. While we were impatiently waiting for these babies to arrive, we tried to keep busy, but I was outside doing something. I got a text from a gentleman who shot a lot of 3D archery. He took his level 3 coach certification with me some years back at Lancaster Archery. It was one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so he called me. He had been at the 3D shoot, the big one. Where was that?
ASA. The ASA in London, Kentucky, I think.
Yes, that's it.
Wasn't there an IBO this last week?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. The third leg of the IBO was also, yes.
Yeah, okay. So he was thoroughly disgusted. He opened up saying, what's the cause of the drop bang syndrome that he had? In other words, the bow drops,
Dip bangs.
he hammers a release, or he trips a release off, and
Yep.
so he just shot horrible. He scored horribly because of this, and said, "Oh, I judged the yardage really well, but I had this drop bang," And so we discussed, well, that's a form of target panic issues, and you're anticipating a result, and you want to get that result quickly, and anyway, that's what's on your mind. So what was the cause? But we're back and forth on texting, and I was explaining how to use the back tension release aid. He had one, but he had it on a wrist strap, and he was rolling it with his fingers.
Yeah.
And he comes to tell me, well, several of the pros said that that's the way you must do it. Total control instead of not being in control, loading your back and not controlling with your fingers.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Well, you know what you're gonna, and I'll tell you where part of that's coming from. There has been some successful shooters in both 3D and the target game who are more of a command style shooter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so people are starting, oh, well, maybe this is something, And then you get coaches or you get pros and they say, well, Kyle Douglas shoots this way, or Tim Gillingham shoots this way, or whoever, whatever, and then that's what it turns into. It turns into, well, so and so does it, so it must work.
That name came up, Kyle Douglas.
Yeah, and I mean, is there some truth to that? You can do it, and you can do it successfully. Sure. Is there? What's the word? How do I say this without offending people? Is that for everyone?
No. People can live on that edge and get by, and some do really, really well.
Sure.
And more power to them. However, 95% of the population will be destroyed by that kind of approach.
Yep.
And of course, what are you going to teach kids? Which way are you going to teach kids? Well, we can't teach them to command the trigger.
No.
Have them be successful.
I think an advanced shooter who has probably tried multiple ways can make that work.
Yeah. Kids don't have the brain development because your brain is not done developing until you're 24 or 25, and for some men it never develops, as we know.
I just got that.
Yes.
Well, we are about at our normal time limit. I will have to go back and do some edits here, but other than that, I mean, is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about, or I think we got it covered. Look forward to Doc's experience. I leave late Wednesday for the Nationals out in Kentucky. Just taking a group of kids out to London, Kentucky for the S3DA Nationals.
S3DA NASA.
Yeah, the Nationals are this weekend. So, and then, but I'll be back. We're supposed to drive back Sunday, so we should be good for Monday unless something changes. But
okay.
One thing I'd like to ask for people to, for the CoachCast Monday program, as we've now termed it, because there's other people have CoachCast, but ours is CoachCast Monday. If you have questions or suggestions or things that you would like to have us begin to pursue and participate with you in that pursuit, please email these or put them on the chat so we can begin to address those.
Yeah. Comment. You can comment on the live feed on Facebook as well. And then, always you can go to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. The audio version is available. The video version, of course, is now not just on Facebook, but the edited version will be on the YouTube page as well. And so we're streaming this live on Facebook right now, Larry, which we've never been able to do before, but I can do that now with my new computer. So things are, we're expanding a little bit, and we'll go from there. So that's it. Thanks everybody for joining in. Thank you for those who joined into the live version. And you got a couple of people here, Doc, that are rooting for you. So
all right.
the comments on the Facebook live feed. So I'm sure that you'll be meeting some of these people in the near future, especially at the Classic.
I need all the roots I can get.
All right. Well,
congratulations, Coach Wise.
Yeah. Congratulations, Larry.
Yeah, we're
Outstanding.
just ecstatic. And so can't wait to get them home. We aren't going to see them until they get home. Nobody's allowed in the hospital.
So they're not allowed to shoot in the hospital, shoot the bows in the hospital?
No. Well,
that might be frowned upon, Doc.
Okay. Well, it was crazy like that when I was a department head too. So
yeah. Yep. So
all right.